What's up? Welcome in. Hoge and Jahns with you. And it is time for a post-draft roundtable. We like these roundtable episodes every once in a while.
We do. I get tired of hearing from myself. Tired of looking at my own
me,
notes.
and you're tired of hearing from me mostly.
Well, that's besides the point, Just we talk enough, you and I.
Yeah.
We need others on this podcast. I think it helps steer the conversation in different ways. And with the Bears, there's a lot of ways to go with this. So, yes, it's a good crew that we work with on this Bears beat.
Yeah, and we'll bring them in here in a second. Want to make sure you're following us on Twitter at Adam Hoge, at Adam Jahns. I want to ask a favor of all of our listeners, actually, to start this episode. Whether you are a YouTube viewer or not, we would really appreciate if you go on our YouTube channel, Hoge and Jahns, and hit the subscribe button for us. Helps grow the channel, helps support the podcast. And I know a lot of you guys still listen the old-fashioned way through podcasts, and we love the OGs that still do that, and we want to keep it that way. This always will be a podcast, but if you don't mind checking out the YouTube channel, hitting subscribe on there for us and help grow the channel, that would be a great help as we continue to grow this podcast. And of course, text a friend, send the link to somebody, a Bears fan out there that and anytime you do that, we really appreciate it because it helps us grow the pod, as we're still trying to do. Is we're starting to get to the point where I'm starting to lose track of years. I think we just finished season 8, going into season 9. Yeah, which is crazy to think about.
I kind of go by coaching staffs.
Yeah. Well, that's why we lose track.
Yes. Many a coaching staff covered here, but yeah, it's time's flying, man. It's we were the young guys on this beat not too long ago, and now I'm 40. I don't know how old you are. You just turned 37?
37.
37. Yeah, we're not the
young guys anymore. Neck and back gave out like 3 days later.
Yeah, the gray hairs are adding up here.
Happy birthday. Here's $2,000 in chiropractic care you need.
There's a funny photo of Kevin Fishbane when he started on this beat.
With hair.
You said it, not me. Yes. It's like Bob Laguerre. Bob Laguerre used to cover the Bears for the Daily Herald. He covered it for like 25 years. And for some reason, on his ID badge was like his picture from like 1984.
Yes.
Here he is covering like Ryan Pace's Chicago Bears with his ID from 84, where he looks like he's 15. I'm like, come on, Bob.
If the Bears had a new security guard that didn't know Bob and like checked his badge, be like, that's not you. No. You got to leave.
No, like you got to update that. You got to update your pictures and stuff. You know, just got updated pictures. Larry Mayer, he had a photo shoot. Did you see?
Oh, Larry Mayer photo shoot.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm laughing before even I articulate any thoughts on that, but just the idea of our good friend Larry Mayer from ChicagoBears.com getting a photo shoot cracks me up a little bit.
Yeah, that's an interesting sight to think about, but. My guess is it wasn't just scheduled just for him, but
no, hope so.
Yeah, if that's the case, it's even funnier. All right, well,
picture of George Costanza.
That's funny. Well, speaking of the beat, we have 3 guests from the Bears beat joining us today in a roundtable. 3 reporters you should definitely be following. We like doing these roundtables, especially, just sort of reset the conversation sometimes. And it's a star-studded cast today as we bring in Zack Pearson from the Bear Report, Herb Howard from the Bigs, and Colleen Kane from the Chicago Tribune. And we'll jump in, bring them in right now.
Good morning, everybody.
How about this? We got Zack Pearson, Herb Howard, Colleen Kane, the Bear Report represented, the Bigs, Chicago Tribune. Everyone's here. We got a lot to talk about. How's everyone doing today?
Feeling good. How y'all?
Herb, you were just on like 2 weeks ago. I mean, you're back.
Listen, thanks for having me. It's always a good time.
Well, we figured with the draft over and I mean, boy, has this roster changed a lot, right, in the last couple months as we expected. It looks a lot stronger at a lot of positions. It's still considerably weak at a couple others, but definitely this overhaul in full force, especially when you back up to, this time last year even. But, Jahns, where do we want to start here?
Let's start with the quarterback position. What else is there to start with? It's Chicago. Do the Bears have it right or not? I think we're all trying to figure that out here. I think we all feel pretty positive about the direction the team is headed with Justin Fields, with everything he did last year. But it's been a busy offseason. Ryan Poles, well, he's been busy. So what we're going to do here, everybody, is I got some questions for you. And then you guys just take over. We'll interject. I'm sure Hoge has thoughts too. It's Adam Hoge, but
Never.
Let's go. Let's start with this. All right. So the draft is over. Have the Bears provided Justin Fields with enough? He's got a whole new right side of his offensive line, a new receiver, a new tight end, a new running back. How do you guys feel about it? Herb, let's start with you.
Well, I think that, talking about the NFL, often come up with, excuses. And a lot of people don't like that word excuses, but sometimes just the reality of the situation. And the reality of the situation is he just hasn't had enough to reach his full potential the first couple of seasons. And I think that Ryan Poles and the staff have just gone about their business of trying to eliminate as many of these excuses or reasons or whatever you want to call them as possible. And I think they've done a pretty good job of eliminating those. He's got number one receiver, kicks his receiver room down, everybody just a spot. So now you got Claypool and you got Mooney. And so now you got a legitimate receiving core. You've pieced together a pretty decent offensive line. They still got to gel and see what you really got over at right tackle. But I think if you put a lot of pieces around him that just eliminate the excuses that he's had since he's gotten here, not getting enough reps in training camp his rookie year, being thrown into the fire, not having elite talent around him as wide receiver, offensive line last year. Now you've kind of eliminated some of those concerns, and you'll have a chance to have a true evaluation of him before it's time to decide, are we picking up his fifth-year rookie option or not?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's fewer excuses. I think that especially in the targets with DJ Moore, the players he can target, and DJ Moore and Tyler Scott, Robert Tonyan, I think obviously those are huge upgrades and they have to help him. I do think there's still a little bit of, obviously they upgraded the offensive line, but I think there are still questions on there, right? Like, is Braxton Jones going to take steps forward? How is Darnell Wright going to play, in his rookie season? So I think there could be a little bit of shakiness there, when they're starting out, but I think obviously they have upgraded it, and down the road, hopefully, that's the offensive line that they can move forward with.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's go time now. Like, I always say you can throw away his first year because it was just a mess with Matt Nagy.
Complete waste of time.
Yeah, just a complete waste of time, with the whole Andy Dalton thing. Last year kind of threw it away a little bit too. Like, they were entering a full rebuild. For me, I like what they've done, with the offensive weapons, bringing in DJ Moore at the trade, getting Robert Tonyan, and then obviously the draft picks in Roshan Johnson and Tyler Scott. The offensive line needs to be solidified. Like, we looked last year, he was second most sacked quarterback, and it could have been a lot worse. If that wasn't Justin Fields back there, those sacks there's at least 10 to 12 more sacks. How many times did we watch him evade defenders and avoid the sack? So I do think they're doing a good job of building around him. Like I said, it's kind of go time now. There's no more excuses now.
I think that's true, Zach. I'm sorry if I can just jump back in. I think that's true, but I think some of that is also Justin too, right? Some of those sacks a veteran quarterback wouldn't take. Like, some of it is, some of it was him, eluding some sacks that should have happened, but some of them was taking something that shouldn't. So it's not all just what's around him. It's him too, but giving him the best chance to actually develop in that way.
For our podcast listeners that can't necessarily see the video right now, I just want to make sure everyone understands whose voice is who. But that last voice you heard there is Herb Howard. Before that was Zack Pearson, and of course Colleen Kane as well. I think the key word here, guys, is enough. Does he have enough? And I think the answer to that has to be yes, because if he is truly the franchise quarterback, well, those guys elevate the rest of the guys around him, right? Like, those are what those types of quarterbacks do. And so if he's truly that guy, so maybe this isn't perfect right now. Could the offensive line still be better? Sure. Does Chase Claypool have to be better than he was last year? Absolutely. But at some point, you have to also put it on the quarterback to elevate those guys. It's not like, just to take it north to Green Bay, not that they've, been winning championships recently, but Rodgers was always elevating those guys around him. It's not like he had superstars around him, especially in the last few years. So it's at some point it's on Fields to take it that last step. That's the quarterback that's really the star and elevating those around him. In many ways, as good as that Eagles roster is, that's what Jalen Hurts did last year. He took it to another level. And so I think if the question is, does he have enough to then put it on him to elevate everyone? I think the answer is yes.
I think my counter argument to that, so let me play devil's advocate a little bit. I think it always works both ways. Like DJ Moore is here to help Justin Fields, and Justin Fields can help DJ Moore take the next step in his career. I think we saw that with Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen. You get a good pairing like that, everybody goes up. Same thing in Philly. It's like take away Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison from Peyton Manning. Take away Gronk from Tom Brady. Take away Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, arguably the best tight end of all time, away from Patrick Mahomes. It's like DeAndre Hopkins with Deshaun Watson early in his career. Mitch Trubisky didn't have that until Allen Robinson. I think it always works like both ways. I get that the quarterback is supposed to be like the raiser of boats, but I don't know. I don't know who's with me or who's against me, but
I guess the point is he has that guy now. DJ Moore's here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
you want them to take that step together.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's also kind of funny. Like when we talked about Allen Robinson joining the Bears in 2018, the only quarterback he's played with was Blake Bortles and Christian Hackenberg in college, and he never had that guy. And now, I mean, you can kind of say the same thing with DJ Moore. Like, who did he play with in Carolina his whole time there? I mean, Sam Darnold, Baker was there for a little bit. Nothing against PJ Walker, but PJ Walker's not an all-pro, Pro Bowl quarterback. So I think that's kind of a interesting similarity between those two too. And I think they can both kind of Fields can help Moore, like you said. Moore can help Fields, but ultimately, if like Adam, like Hoge said, if Fields is the guy, you have to elevate the talent around you as well.
And I think DJ said that when he came into Hallis Hall for the first time, he was talking about how, like what the consistency of just having the same quarterback and knowing, moving forward, he's going to be with this guy, what that can do for him. And obviously I think he was pretty excited about that.
I really like the idea. We'll call it an idea right now because we haven't seen him on the field, but the idea of what Tyler Scott can bring, like just down the field where the safety has to respect that a bit, right? Like watch that home run shot from Justin Fields because you have a skill set paired with the skill set of the quarterback. I like that. I like that Ryan Poles said that too. That deep ball accuracy, that deep ball talent from Justin Fields now paired with the speed of Tyler Scott. That's going to open things up for everybody. Like especially like underneath for a big guy like Chase Claypool where he can start bodying smaller defensive backs. That changes the game a bit for the Bears.
It's about piecing the whole picture together, right? And so each individual piece by itself may not look all that pretty, but you put them together and it starts to make a lot of sense for you. You start to see the speed elements, with Mooney and with Scott. You obviously got DJ Moore, and then what that can do for the size that you have with these tight ends with Chase Claypool, and putting those things together, and you start to see the whole picture kind of come into focus, and you start to highlight the things that Justin Fields does well. He does throw really good deep balls, so let's get some guys who can get under those deep balls and make those catches, and then give them some big bodies that can be value for you, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, middle of the field, those types of things. And so as the whole entire picture comes together, it starts to look maybe better than the sum of its parts. And I think that could be true outside of wide receiver. I think that could be true up front of the O-line too.
On that topic, I think the Bears have sort of and I wouldn't even call it a small built-in advantage, a considerable built-in advantage this year in the continuity that they're bringing over from last season. It's very rare in the NFL to really be able to bring your entire coaching staff, your entire front office back, because you're either on the low end or the high end. If you're on the low end, everybody gets fired. If you're on the high end, you're getting personnel picked off from you. Like the Eagles just lost their coordinators. And the Bears were close to losing Ian Cunningham, but he stuck around. So they're one of the few teams I feel like that really have all this continuity back from the coaching staff, the front office. And I think you heard, especially when Ian Cunningham talked last week before the draft, the back and forth that they were able to have between the front office and the coaching staff to really understand, hey, this is what the coaches want. This is what they need. These are the pieces, as Herb was just talking about, trying to piece it all together. These are the pieces that are that they need. Now, they don't have everything right now, but I do think that they're on a small list of teams that you can actually point to going into the 2023 season saying, wow, they brought everyone back from their coaching staff and everyone back from the front office.
Yeah, I mean, that's big. And even going back to last offseason, that wasn't the case. I mean, they had 5 to 6 new wide receivers. The only one that was returning was Darnell Mooney. They had pieces shuffling on the offensive line, a lot of uncertainty. So, yeah, I mean, I feel a lot better about that. And I think that's a good point with the front office, too. Like, you're expected to lose Ian Cunningham. You know, if the Bears offense takes the next step and they look really good, you know, Luke Getsy is probably going to get looks as a coach down the line as well. So, while it's a bad thing, I mean, it's also a good thing because it means your offense is doing pretty well.
Yeah,
right.
to Herb's point about piecing it together, it kind of struck me at the end of the draft how we're talking about what does Roschon Johnson's arrival mean for Khalil Herbert? What does Tyler Scott's arrival mean for Velus Jones? And it's like, wow, that's a luxury that now we're talking about, like, who are the odd men out, where, you know, the depth last year at wide receiver was just so bad. You're like, who do they have left? So it's kind of nice to be able to talk about that, I think, for them.
All right, next question. I think one thing we can all agree on that they don't have right now is like that pass rusher where you're like, all right, 3rd and 8, go get the quarterback. I don't think the Bears have that guy right now. And I know we're recording this. They could sign a guy later, but like, how concerned are you guys that the Bears don't have a pass rusher? That defensive end premium position is still a glaring need. Kyle, let's go with you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously concerned, but I think that Ryan Poles set us up for this. Like, he's been talking all offseason that, I mean, someone asked him specifically about the defensive line, and he said, we're not going to get everything done in this offseason. It's a 3-year rebuild. There's, you know, he knew that there were still going to be some gaps in the roster. Yes, obviously it's a big concern, and it's something hopefully they are able to sign a veteran off the street to help them. You know, I think we have to look in that like lens of the 3-year rebuild. We have to look to next year and realize, oh, they have 2 first-round picks next year. And that's going to be a place that they're, you know, like if we're really looking at it in the timeline that he has set out for us, there's time to get that person.
Yeah, it concerns me, but also at the same time, like looking back at the draft, there was a string of like 10 edge rushers taken.
Yeah, I think it was 11 off the board before pick 53.
Right before
yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of hard to blame Ryan Poles. Like, you don't want to mortgage the future, move up, trade any of those picks if you're not completely sold on a guy, anything like that. I do like what they did inside in the trenches. We'll have to wait and see with Pickens and Dexter. You know, Justin Jones being that mix too. I'm just concerned on who's going to rush the passer, who's going to get there. They were dead last in sacks, dead last in pressures last year. Then again, I mean, if someone elevates their game, that could change. But like Colleen said, I mean, bigger picture, they have 2 first-round picks. They still have money to spend this year. They want to go out and get a veteran. So there's a lot of time still to go.
Yeah, this wasn't the roster that was one offseason away from legitimately contending for a Super Bowl, right? I think that window doesn't legitimately open till next year. I think they can be in the hunt this year. I think they could be a fringe, wild card type of team, perhaps. But legitimately, their window doesn't really open to next year. And I think it'll be wide open for them. 24, 25 should be a legitimate opportunity for them to compete for a Super Bowl. But I think that that's just one of those final pieces that they're going to need going into next year, going into the draft, going into free agency. They probably will sign a veteran before this season starts. But ultimately, it's going to be about what they're able to do next year. And they got the resources to be able to do it. So I think that, if he could have found an elite edge rusher at some point this offseason, he probably would have done so. It just worked out that he had to go a different route. And so that's still a glaring weakness on this team. But again, you hope that, the collective can be better than the individuals. And I think that if you can get the push from the pocket that they're talking about from the interior and shortening that edge, it could benefit, guys like Dominique Robinson. It could benefit Travis Gibson and, Walker and the guys that you brought in. So perhaps they could be better than they seem right now, but I do think they'll still add a little bit of help before they get to the season.
How did Eberflus describe it? Dent the pocket?
Yeah.
Right? Dent the pocket a little bit. Like, if I will say this, if you look at his Colts defenses, like, they never really had that elite, like, all-pro pass rusher. Like, that pressure came from inside, and they still finished with a top 5, top 10 defense. You had an all-pro at linebacker. You had a good secondary. And the Bears kind of built themselves, at least this year, it looks kind of similar, right? Like, got some potential in the middle. You spent a lot of money on linebacker right now. That could be a strength. Maybe Tremaine Edmonds takes that next step in his career here. And then that secondary, that could be, like, if all goes well, and that's it could be a big if, right? If all goes well, there's a lot of talent back there. Like a lot of the right type of like demeanor you want back there, right? Guys who aren't afraid to hit, have collisions on the ball, like the type of identity the Bears want to have in that secondary. Like if those guys all hit, like if Ryan Poles hitting all those draft picks back there, that secondary is a huge strength.
Well, it doesn't feel like as many holes.
Yeah. And I think that, and what you touched on right there at the end, Johns, is probably what they're going to rely on, right? That, I mean, basically the hits principle. And you heard, even when that defense was kind of decimated late in the year, when we went to the Super Bowl, you heard the Eagles players talking about how tough it was to play, and get through that game. That was still that every player who was on the field, regardless of who they were, made it hard. And so if, you start the season and you're healthy again and you have more pieces, even if you might not have that edge rusher on the edge, like they should be able to. And Alan Williams, I think it was the Jervon Dexter phone call, said to him, we're building this thing inside out the way it's supposed to be built. I mean, I thought that was a little, that was revealing that's what they're trying to do. They're going inside out here. And I think this offseason reflects that. I mean, they've concentrated more on defensive tackle, those linebackers up the middle. And then they kind of already had those safeties in place, but they're still there. And in a different year, you might have seen Eddie Jackson shipped off or something like that, but he's still there. So, I think whatever the deficiencies are on the edge, and there probably will still be signings. And let's also not forget Dominique Robinson, right? Like that was a developmental piece. He really was not supposed to do anything last year. And someone like that needs to emerge, regardless of if you sign a veteran or not. Someone like that needs to emerge and be better this season.
I think those linebackers, too, you talk about the investment that they made at the linebacker position. We talked about how, Justin Fields and DJ Moore are equally responsible for helping each other improve. Those linebackers can do the same thing for the guys in front of them. We talk about how much help that the D-line can give the linebackers and allow them to flow and read and run. Those linebackers can help those defensive linemen, too, just by being on the mind of those interior linemen, understanding where these guys are, how do I pull off and get them. That could, get them off of the D tackle a little bit early. So I think that it goes hand in hand for those guys to be able to help each other. And I think you get that kind of elite level play at the second level. It could impact the first.
All right, question 3. What's your favorite offseason decision made by Ryan Poles? Zach?
Man, I think the obvious one is probably getting DJ Moore in that trade and how that all went down. I like what they did in that 4th round of the draft. Like, I think that was a really good round for them. I think we look back, the Gordon and Brisker picks last year in the 2nd round can turn out to be really good. It looks that way so far. I just like going out and getting those offensive skill position players, like going out and getting Roschon Johnson, going out and getting someone like, Tyler Scott in the draft, things like that. I think what they did in the draft, I really like overall. I think they solidified the right tackle spot, with Darnell Wright, and then kind of getting guys that fit the mold. Like Hoge said, you're building this way. They got guys in the secondary that fit, Tyreek Stevenson, Terrell Smith, even, Kendall Williamson's got good size and length. And overall, I just, I like what they did in the draft. That was my favorite part of the offseason so far.
I guess for me, my favorite part of what, Ryan Poles and the staff did this offseason was kind of sticking to their plan, right? They didn't deviate from, what they've shown themselves to be or what they've said their plan is going to be in terms of, being disciplined with their spending, not trying to make these big splashes if they don't make sense. I mean, they threw their head in the ring, and if it didn't work, it just didn't work. And that didn't matter if we're talking about, right tackle or we're talking about the 3 technique. Once they found out it's a little bit deep for whatever reason, they were comfortable pivoting and doing something else that was more comfortable for them. So I just commend them. We don't know if he's right or wrong yet. I'm not saying he's right or wrong. Only time will tell on right or wrong. But he seems to have a plan, and he seems to be confident in it and willing to stick to it, even in the face of differing opinions or people pressure on the outside saying maybe you should go this way, go that way. If it gets uncomfortable for him, he chooses not to do it because he sticks to his plan. So I just commend him for sticking to his plan, and time will tell if he's right or wrong.
I have the exact same answers as Zach. DJ Moore, obviously, just because, you want to see what, as we talked about before, what Justin could do with a number one receiver. But the 4th round guys, I'm just really intrigued by both of them. The way the Bears staff and the way that Rashawn Johnson's coaches talk about him and what kind of a leader he was at Texas. It's I was trying to think of a comparison of who else we've heard them talk about like that. The Bears, as far as the Bears staff, and David Montgomery maybe a little bit, Darnell Mooney maybe a little bit. It's a guy that's just already a professional player who works really hard, and I'm just really interested. I feel like he does a lot of different things well. Is good special teams player, can block, can beyond just being a hard-nosed runner. He does a lot of stuff. So I'm really interested in him. And then we talked about for Tyler Scott too, and his speed and what that can do for Justin.
The crazy thing about this Tyler Scott pick is that was the Robert Quinn trade. Yeah. I mean, everybody's out here giving Howie Roseman all the praise in the world, and he obviously deserves a lot of praise, but I still can't believe they got what they got for Robert Quinn. I mean, Robert Quinn was doing nothing. He did not want to be traded. He made that clear over and over again. He made it clear after he was traded. He made it clear at the Super Bowl that he was only sort of halfway excited about even being there. And he played like it when he was in Philly. He didn't do anything while he was there. And they still managed to get a 4th round pick from Philadelphia of all places in that trade, and they're able to turn it into, a speedy wide receiver that they need. So I think that was a job well done by Ryan Poles. But the answer to this question though for me is specifically the combine. I just like how Ryan Poles made that decision. We're going to make this trade early. We're going to make it before free agency. He arrived to Indianapolis. He made that very clear through the media. He obviously was having discussions after that was, sort of a for sale sign was put up very loudly on that number 1 pick. He accelerated the process. And I just think it made a lot of sense overall to get that. If you're going to make a move like adding DJ Moore, get it done before free agency so you know what you have, you know what your moving pieces are. And I don't think that we'll never know if there was ever an opportunity to get more out of that pick. But now that the draft's over, I don't necessarily see a glaring, trade that we saw during the draft or something that suggests that he could have gotten more than he got. I think it was well executed, well planned, especially for a guy who's still a young general manager. I mean, he showed up to Indy like a boss and was like, this is what we're doing. Come,
call me,
let's go. Let's get this thing going. And he got it done.
I don't think people were done with that either, though. I think a lot of times we don't factor in the fact of who he traded that pick with, right? You got to factor in next year too. You want to maximize that pick. And I think that depending on who else made those phone calls to try to get up there, they may have been better positioned to have a pretty good run this year. I don't think the Panthers are going to do anything much this year. So that's still going to be an impact in terms of what that pick is going to be. And I think that probably factored into his decision too.
Yeah, it's not done. Good point, Herbert. It's not done at all. You have 2 first-round picks next year, and those could be high. I know Adam here is higher on the Panthers than I am, but if that's a top 5 pick and you feel good about Justin Fields, you have an amazing resource on your hands again, which many say could be a better quarterbacks class. It's always, relative, I guess, but yeah. And then you got that extra second 2 years from now. So I like, to Herb's point, there's a plan. It was executed, and I keep driving this point home. It's like the Bears know what they want to be.
Yeah,
they really do. Let me ask you about this. What do you think about how much they articulate? This is who we are. This is what we want to be. This is what we're looking for. That's what strikes me as just different than I've covered this team for more than a decade. It strikes me as just different from every other general manager and coach that I've covered. There's unison. There's actual synergy, to use a Phil Emery word, in what the Bears are trying to do here.
Well, and real quick, before everyone else answers to that point, I think there's 2 parts to that to me. One is I think you had some regimes that were sort of the whole time trying to figure out what they were. Right? They didn't know.
Mark Trestman.
they could Trestman, but also the contrast between John Fox and then going to Matt Nagy, and then the word identity is all we talked about for 4 years under Matt Nagy because they never had it. And I think that starts higher towards the top because from the point Ryan Poles got this job, he obviously had Flus targeted as a coach. They agreed on the way that they wanted to play football, which was always interesting to me because it was not necessarily the way the Chiefs do it. But they have this identity, and so they know what it is. And then the other side of it to me is they're not afraid to talk about it. So many of these coaches are so paranoid to say what we're doing, what they want to do. And they're just like, no, this is what we're doing. This player fits it. Here's why. And sure, they're still he's a little paranoid with injuries during the season, Flus is, but like in terms of like trying to talk about things, I find Poles to be relatively refreshing in the way that specifically Poles, the way he just kind of lays it all out there. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. And the transparency is appreciated.
I think I noticed that, the biggest time was when it was family day and Roquan Smith came out with the trade request. Ryan Poles didn't have to come and talk to us. Like he did not have to come down and talk to us at all. And I don't think previous regimes would have. And he did that. He's taking his time out to do that. So I appreciate that. I know everyone else appreciates that. And, Ryan Poles, to me, he looks like a general manager who has really done his homework and has really paid attention and studied everything he can about being a general manager in the NFL. Like he is about the details. They know what they want to be. Like you said, I mean, he entered that combine like a boss. He put that for sale sign out. He talked to the media about everything, talking to the media after about everything, giving details. I think that's really refreshing, and it's really refreshing with the coaching staff too.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about him and Flus being in lockstep, and that was something that kind of struck me in the pre-draft process. Every time he talked about like what makes you more comfortable going into your second draft, and it was just that, like you talked about the continuity with the coaching staff, but also just like an understanding of what they want, what they're looking for in terms of character, what they're looking for in terms of scheme, and so they knew what they were after. And yeah, it feels like, I know wasn't there a joke about, I was trying to think about this last night, a joke about the collaboration between Nagy and Pace, it was like it was a big thing a couple of years ago.
Well, let's not use the word 1,000 times in one press conference.
Right. I think I used it in a story today, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm using this, but it feels more real to me between the two of them. So I don't know.
I keep thinking back before I get to the next question. Like I keep thinking back to the start of the Ryan Pace, John Fox era, and just how different it was. Like you have a young general manager who clearly wants to find his next quarterback and overhaul that roster. But you hired a veteran coach, probably getting his last stop as a head coach, right? And is here to try to win now. Like Ted Phillips said that in the PNC Center. He's here for a quick turnaround when Ryan Poles is probably scratching his head like, with who? Like with who? I got to get Jay Cutler out of here and Phil let me sign this guy for another like 20 years. 2 years, actually. But like, it's just so different. And you look at last season, and that's what it was. Like, that's the first time I've covered a full season where it's just like, we got to tear this down. It's the only way to fix this. Tear it down. I don't know if anyone has thoughts on that, but those differences in like starting points from regimes just feel so, I don't know if it's the right word is refreshing, but the difference is important.
Yeah, just having a sense of direction matters, right? It matters in the locker room. It matters in the front office. It matters to your fan base, right? Like several times before last season, we heard from some of their key players, Darnell Mooney, David Montgomery, Jalen Johnson, all referenced at some point in some way, shape, or fashion that they didn't have a sense of direction the previous season. They didn't know what the plan was week in and week out, and we covered the team every day. We didn't know how the Bears wanted to win a game last year. Like whether you can actually go out there and win it or not, there should be some clear sense of how you want to go about winning football games. That wasn't clear before last year. And so I think that this new regime came in with a plan for how they wanted to be, how they wanted to build this team, how they wanted to coach this team, and they understood that they weren't under the pressure of wins and losses, at least not for last year. So that wasn't the main thing. The main thing was establishing the expectations, establishing the culture, making shrewd moves in the front office. And I think they've continued to do that. And I don't think they're going to do anything outside of that until they feel that they are legitimately within striking distance of contending for a Super Bowl.
What are you guys going to watch for this weekend at rookie minicamp? We're there Friday and Saturday. It used to be 3 days. Now it's only 2. It's a nice weekend. Thanks, Bears.
Appreciate that.
Can't go forever. But at least we'll be outside watching football. I'm not complaining about that, actually. Football outside, I'll take it. I expect to see a lot of workout players. Usually that's how these things work. They're like an extension of the draft in a sense. You're looking for free agents to sign. But what are you guys keeping an eye on? Herb, let's start with you come Friday and Saturday.
I'm going to try not to overreact. That's first thing. I think all of these guys should look good in, shorts and T-shirts. So I try not to overreact to seeing how they move around. But I do want to see, the speed up close and personal. You want to see their movement skills up close and personal. That being said, I'll keep my eye on the defensive tackles just because I'm just very intrigued by them. I know without pads it's hard to evaluate them, but I just want to see their movement skills, their ability to penetrate, that explosiveness that we talked about, even though you don't necessarily see it on tape. We talk about the slow get off and things like that from Javon, but I want to see, what that looks like up close and personal. Those two dudes really, really intrigue me. We talk about Dexter and Pickens, but they also give me some PTSD. I started to think about like Ego Ferguson and Will Sutton. I remember being excited about those guys and what they could potentially be playing next to each other, and it never really panned out. And so watching the draft and seeing those 2 D tackles go in the second round, third round, it's like, ooh, I'm excited, but I kind of remember Ego and Will, and I don't want that to happen again.
Yeah, I agree. There's just some unknown there. And so it's just kind of intriguing to see, what they're going to look like, how they're going to move. And then just from a reporter standpoint, I like getting in front of these guys. We did it kind of very quickly on draft calls on draft night, but just getting in front of them, starting to learn like who they are as people, as players, and what we're going to be dealing with all season. So that's fun for me.
Yeah, I think the undrafted guys are going to be interesting. Last year they found Jack Sanborn in that group. It's kind of hard to look at the offensive line. Darnell Wright, he's going to line up at right tackle. It's not a lot out there. I'm interested in the cornerbacks. I think, Tyreek Stevenson, Terrell Smith. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but I can't wait for like those battles in training camp between the DBs and wide receivers. I think those are going to be a blast to watch. And kind of getting our first look at those DBs, at least the rookie guys, this week will be kind of fun. I think you guys would agree. I don't think anything's going to top that. What was it, 2019 rookie minicamp with all the kickers there that we spent days watching.
Dude, what are you doing, man?
Nothing will top that. So
wait a minute though. You're not excited about Andre Schmidt?
Oh yeah,
the Syracuse kicker from Vernon Hills gets to walk down the street to Hallis Hall. Give Cairo Santos a run for his money.
Now, only you, the special teams coordinator, is excited for more kicker conversation.
You know how I found out how to say his name properly? Literally, the Village of Vernon Hills Facebook page, because they're all excited about this, and obviously I live in Vernon Hills, so it ended up in my Facebook feed. And someone in the comments was like, "How do you say his name?" Because it's actually spelled SZMYT. So I wouldn't think that would be.
How do you say it?
Schmidt.
Schmidt?
It's Schmidt, but it's spelled SZMYT. Well, at least according to Scott in the Vernon Hills comment section of Facebook, that is how you say it. So,
thanks, Scott.
So obviously that source is impeccable and correct 1,000%. In all seriousness, this sounds so simple, but I just like sizing these guys up at rookie minicamp. The reality is like I'll never forget, and I got a chance to see Justin Fields in person from the sidelines twice in college, but when he showed up the rookie minicamp, it was still like, holy shit, that dude's big. Like you just sort of get it's when these guys are walking around with all these college players on the field during some of these games, you're like, okay, yeah, but it's still college football. And granted, rookie minicamp is still all the guys coming out of college, but now we're talking about the guys that got drafted, guys that got signed, the cream is rising there, and you start to see how these guys size up next to each other, and you get a good idea. Like And to your point about the defensive tackles, we know Travis Bell is significantly smaller than Gervon Dexter, who's 6'6", Bell's 6 foot. But what does it look like when they're both out there in terms of those movement skills, right? Like, how do they compare and contrast a little? I always like seeing that, especially on the first day of rookie minicamp. You're not going to make any conclusions over who's going to do what in the NFL, obviously, but you sort of get that baseline of what they look like.
In terms of sizing up. Go ahead. I was going to say, in terms of sizing up, like, I want to see Darnell Wright, and where he's not in a picture next to Tony Medlin, to see, where it's unfair for Tony, where everybody's like, "Oh, big Darnell Wright is." I'm like, no,
you don't know, teammate.
Let's see him on the field with his teammates instead. That's Tony Medlin, the Bears' long time equipment manager who's been here since Walter Payton. But sorry, Herb, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Flus reminded us again that this coaching staff, they're not afraid to play these young guys. So some of these guys that we're going to see for the first time this weekend, they're going to play some meaningful snaps for the Bears this season. And it's not just Darnell Wright. Like, a lot of these guys are going to get opportunities, even, the later mid-round picks, and even guys that may have been unsigned are going to get some opportunities. And so I'm eager to get the first look at those guys to see if you can start to see some of those traits that could translate to when you get to, week 12, week 13. Like, this kid came out of nowhere. Like, can we think back to the first time we laid eyes on him and did some of those things, show themselves?
Yeah. And to what Zach said earlier, I think the Bears have actually had a run of good undrafted free agents. I bet this goes back all the way to like Bryce Callahan, Roy Robertson Harris, Cam Meredith. Right? The Bears have found players, Jack Sanborn. So you're looking for a player or two to emerge because teams find gems in undrafted free agency. So let's see if someone catches our eye. All right, last question. I know it's May, but Aaron Rodgers is finally gone. He's at Jets games, or where did he go? He went to the
Knicks games, the Rangers.
Yeah.
He's hanging out with Sauce Gardner, who doesn't know who Jessica Elba
I saw
is,
that.
which is messed up.
Making us all feel old. All right. How wide open is this division? Who is betting on Kirk Cousins with me? I'm kidding, but maybe not.
No.
Kyle,
really wide open, I think. I don't know that means that the Bears are have a shot. I don't know. I'm not predicting the Bears are going to win the division, but I think it's pretty, Rodgers leaving is just one of the biggest things to happen in this Bears offseason, I think. So it's it's open.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably been as open since Rodgers has been here. I mean, it's crazy. It's like, I think you legit have like Detroit, if they could take the next step, they're probably the favorites going in. Minnesota was kind of
which is weird to say, by the way.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how things work in Detroit. Like,
yeah, I mean, you're just waiting for them to fail, like something to go wrong. I mean, I guess something has gone wrong with the offseason gambling stuff, but no, I mean, like, even watching that Vikings team last year, I think a lot of people kind of were like, yeah, I don't know about them. They're, first, one and done. And that's what happened. They got, waxed by the Giants. Green Bay, obviously, is it Jordan Love? Is he going to be good? And then you got the Bears. So, yeah, I think it's wide open. It's hard to make a prediction now, but it's kind of, any of them, I think.
Yeah, I think the Bears are definitely in the conversation. I think they'll just be one of those teams that are just in the hunt towards the end of the season. I don't think that puts them in a position to be, division leaders, but I think they'll be in that third in the hunt column over there. As far as the division goes, it's who knows, right? No way the Packers found a third straight Hall of Fame quarterback, right? No way that's going to happen again is what you assume, right? But you're scared because they've done it twice to you. And it's like, please don't do that again. And you assume that's not going to happen, but we don't know for sure. That kid can come in and light the world on fire. I'll never believe in Detroit. I just won't ever do that. They've had top 5 all-time running back, top 5 all-time receiver. It's never mattered, right? They're Detroit. And so until they show me otherwise, I'll never believe Detroit's going to win the division. I'll go with Minnesota right now. I'll still stick with Minnesota in terms of who I think is going to win the division. But I think that any of these teams could certainly feel good about their chances going into it. As far as the Bears go, I think they're still a year away from winning the division.
I think the timing of what's happening in Green Bay, like makes this all the more interesting, especially when you're talking about like the Bears, as opposed to the Lions and the Vikings, who don't have that young quarterback, right? You have the Bears, who if Justin Fields takes that step in his career, you have all this investment made around them. It's such a unique, like the timing of it makes it just unique because like the witch is gone, like Aaron Rodgers is gone. Jordan Love could be good, but the timing of it, like the door has now been opened up for every other team in the division. And with the Bears having Justin Fields, the young quarterback, like it just feels like there's such an opportunity for this organization to go through it, to go through that door.
This might be NFC North bias on my part, but I find the division incredibly interesting. I don't think that they're going to have a team that's, anywhere close to contending to actually win the NFC, let alone the Super Bowl. But I just think you have so many teams that are in interesting positions. Herb, you bring up the Vikings. The Vikings and the Bears, once we get into August and you start hearing all those projected win totals and the analytics that get thrown in there, they're going to be on complete opposite ends of the spectrum because the Vikings are poised for regression in so many different ways. So they were winning all those one-score games last year while the Bears were losing all those one-score games. So in the NFL, that could flip just like that. I mean, it really could. And you don't know. The Lions, I think, to me, should be the favorites, but it's not even just trusting the Lions. I mean, is Jared Goff going to repeat what he did last year? I don't know. I mean, that seems like a heck of a bet. I think they did a good job of getting Hendon Hooker in the third round, but when's he going to be ready? Not just from his ACL injury, but also, he's got a ways to go before he can actually get out there and I think play NFL football. But I like the pick, and a lot of that's going to it's going to be on Jared Goff's shoulders to repeat what he did last year, which was a borderline Pro Bowl season. And I just don't know if that's going to happen. The Packers, meanwhile, they're going to have to make a decision real quick, in my mind, because I don't think they know what they have in Jordan Love. And if it's a disaster early, wouldn't you want to pivot towards tanking for Caleb Williams?
100%.
I mean, in their roster's not. Remember, they didn't make the playoffs last year with Aaron Rodgers, and now they don't have Aaron Rodgers. So they could very well go into the toilet real quick if Jordan Love's not good. And this podcast has been well documented in our opinions on how good we think Jordan Love is. I just find that to be interesting. And then you ask the question, like, who's the best quarterback in the division? And based on resume, you probably go Kirk Cousins, right? But who's the most talented quarterback in the division?
It's Justin.
It's Justin, and it's not close. So if things click, there's no, and going kind of taking this whole conversation full circle, if things click with Justin, he is going to elevate everyone around him. And it wouldn't be shocking to see the Bears all of a sudden out of nowhere have the best offense in this division.
Yeah, and it's not even like who's the best. I mean, who do you trust too? Which quarterback would you trust in the division? Like I wouldn't trust Kirk Cousins in a big playoff game. No chance. So yeah, I think it's interesting. It feels like one of those divisions where it's like, I don't know if they'll have a bottom 3 team unless the Packers do decide to tank and they're really bad. It just kind of feels like you're just kind of jumbled around a little bit.
And you know what? I think the Bears would take that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you have a chance now. It's the timing. I tell you guys, we'll see if Poles and Eberflus can take advantage of it. And, we thank you for your time, but it's a unique set of circumstances here for the Bears with everything they've done with that first pick. And again, like if you go down the road, like we were just talking about having the 2 first-round picks next year, and the Packers want to move around for the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And like Ryan Poles gets a call from Gutekunst. No. Like, it's just a unique opportunity here for the Bears.
That'd be interesting.
All right, guys. Well, yeah, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. What a great group. What a great conversation. Make sure everyone's checking out all of their work. Zack Pearson in the Bear Report, Herb Howard, the Bigs, Colleen Kane in the Chicago Tribune. Find them on Twitter. Find them, read them, watch them. And guys, we really appreciate your time today. Hopefully everybody can take a deep breath now that the draft is over and relax a little bit.
Yeah, thanks so much for having.
They got to be at Hallis Hall on Friday, man.
Yeah.
See you guys tomorrow morning.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks.
Hey, by now you probably know our next partner, and it's a really cool product. Let's talk about Athletic Greens. If you're looking to get better gut health, more energy, or a stronger immune system in a really easy, natural way, you've got to check out Athletic Greens. I'm sure you'll agree that most of us are not huge fans of having to take a bunch of pills or vitamins in the morning. But with Athletic Greens, you can get rid of all of those extra vitamin bottles and finally make some room in your cabinet. Athletic Greens is an all-in-one solution, and you'll really enjoy getting your daily vitamins. So what is this stuff? With one scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. The special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. All of those things. Right now is the time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially as we head into the flu and cold season. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/Adams. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/Adams, plural, to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, great conversation. Those 3 great reporters. We're not done yet, though, because, we sort of, and this is on us, we sort of opened up the voicemail line during the draft, but we didn't really put it out there that well. And then, it was weird, like, Bob just started calling our cell phones and leaving voicemails there. B-Man, long time
He fills up
voicemail
all
contributor.
the voicemail lines, like 3 different voicemail lines just filled with gibberish and talk of sausages and Packer jokes.
I'm like, Bob, how'd you get this number, man? I'm working. Please call back and leave a voicemail.
Yeah.
So,
decline, red button.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't block the number. We didn't get to that point. But no, we come on. We can't go through a draft without hearing what Bob and B-Man have to say, right? So this is not your full voicemail segment that we usually do, but we do have a couple voicemails we wanted to share with you. First, here is B-Man.
Hey, Bears fans, B-Man here. I'm back, and just what I wanted, we got Justin Fields some help with our new pick. Bear down!
There it is. You wanted help for Justin Fields up front? Darnell Wright is the pick. And then Bob calling incessantly. Here he is.
Go ahead, Johnson. Babe, it is me, Bob Dabrowski, calling in live from Kansas City to report on the Chicago Bears. Boys, here we go. We got some big, beefy beefcakes up front. We got a speedy guy in the 4th round or whatever. We got this guy, Tyreek Stevenson, that plays with a attitude. Okay, he is not going to take no crap from nobody in the entire league, let alone these new-look Green Bay Packers. Let's go, Bears. I mean, look at this class. It's a high class of potential, okay? They got the number 8, number 10, number 12, number 37 recruits in the entire country, easily the best recruiting class of the whole draft. That tells me they got loads of potential, okay? Maybe they didn't totally live up to it at college, but that's okay. This is a future class. Future Bears, future Super Bowl. Future Super Bowls, Bears. Let's go, Bears. Chicago Bears, bear down.
Yeah, I was worried there for a second that he was singular in the Super Bowl, but then he corrected himself, I think, there, made it plural.
Plural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on. 1 Super Bowl with all those recruits? I never thought about it that way, but yeah, the Bears got the best recruiting class in the draft.
Well, that is, in terms of like fun facts, I know the Fishman isn't on this podcast with us, but like you drafted players from, big time programs, and all of them are big time recruits at some point in their careers. You like those underdog stories, the guys that go from like the 1-star, 2-stars and become, superstars, but it is unique with this draft class. These guys, these players have been good for some time.
Yeah. All right. Well, just a programming note as we close up shop today. We will have an episode next week recapping rookie minicamp, but the Bears are in sort of this little quiet period before OTAs really kick off, where they're on the field and we're allowed to be out there once a week. So what we're going to do is we'll recap rookie minicamp. We'll be back Tuesday to do that. Probably just one episode next week. And then we'll probably actually go dark for 1 week after that, just to take a little breather after the draft. And then the week after that is when the OTA practices on the field begin, and we'll get an idea of seeing the whole team together with the rookies. And of course, we'll be back to break all that down. As we always do throughout the summer. We're not disappearing completely. But again, in the meantime, we will be back Tuesday to recap everything from rookie minicamp this weekend at House Hall. So that's up next. Please follow us on Twitter at Adam Hoge, at Adam Jahns. And as I said off the top of the show, if you don't mind, if you're not subscribed to that YouTube channel, please do. Help us out. And if you're listening and podcast, please rate and review the pod as well. Help us grow the channel. Help us grow the podcast. Appreciate all the loyal listeners. The weather's kind of nice today, Johns.
About time.
I don't know what happened, but
Seriously, though, about time.
yeah.
We had a baseball game last night. Hit about 45, 49 degrees. Hoodies were on. Couple wins, though, for the Jahns boys. Good start to the year. Yeah.
Victory. That's what it's all about. All right. Well, we're going to go enjoy that weather. We'll talk to you on Tuesday.
See ya.